What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Barbados Walker. I am your host, Andrew, and in this video, I want you guys to go on a very simple journey with me. We're going to be exploring things that you only find in Barbados. I mean, technically, some of the things I'm going to be talking about, you'll find one or two other countries or a few other countries that have similar things, but these ones are the ones that I decided to pick because I want you guys to also tell me your own experiences about things that you genuinely only find in Barbados. If you can think of something, please leave it in the comment section below because I would like to read your own stuff. I have everything today from creepy crawlies to ghost stories. That's right. Today you will be hearing two spooky ghost stories in addition with some experience that I had at the emergency clinic or emergency section of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I'll be talking about all of this stuff, and there is something about the police department, the police force in Barbados that I also want you to know. That is a lot of stuff that is happening right now, but I can't wait to share it with you guys. And without further ado, let us begin. So in the video today, we're starting with something that I discovered. It's called the Barbados thread snake. Now, I'm going to find a picture and put it for you. What you're seeing right now is the Barbados thread snake. Just to read for you something small. The Barbados thread snake is a species of thread snake. It is the smallest known snake species. The member of the Leptotyphlopidae family is found on the Caribbean islands of Barbados and Anguilla. The scientific name for this individual is Tetrachelostoma carle. It is a reptile. I first saw this thing on a walk. I was taking a long walk around St. George and I saw this little thing in the grass. It just came out of the grass and started running on the road. Now my brain is already familiar with how snakes move. If I see something coming at me with full speed in this left to right zigzag motion, that is a snake. I don't care what you identify as, I am calling you a snake. And sometimes when I see things doing like that and I think they're snakes, they actually turn out to just be worms, right? But maybe I was scared or something and I thought it was a snake and my brain imagined stuff. So I said, if it is moving like a snake, but it is that tiny, maybe my brain is just doing stuff and I'm seeing just a worm as a snake. But as I looked closer, I noticed that it had all the features that you would normally expect from a snake. The head had a particular shape, the body had a particular shape, it was moving in a weird way, it didn't have any of the worm-like, the body looked like the body of a reptile, a snake. Everything said it was a snake. And so I was like, I must be tripping. I just avoided it. I said, okay, I don't want to hear stories that touch. Let me just avoid this, whatever you want to call yourself, and go on with my walk. But when I got home, I was still very curious. Could there be a snake that is that tiny? Ladies and gentlemen, there is. It is called a thread snake. It is literally that small, 3 to 4 inches small. But here's the good news. There's always a silver lining. The good news is that it is not venomous. We thank God. Because imagine you're just walking through a grassy area and this thing bites you. And now you have to be thinking about anti-venom and rushing yourself to the hospital. One thing, however, in Barbados that you should be careful about is centipedes. If you go to a place that is very, very bushy, you might get stung by a centipede. And that is going to be unfortunate for two reasons. The first reason it is unfortunate is that it is extremely painful. The second reason is that if you're not familiar with the Barbados emergency system, it will be even more unfortunate. I want to tell you one emergency story that I had. This was sometime in 2022 while I was in Barbados, right? hot water. I was trying to make tea and the water was really hot and I wasn't paying attention and the water poured on my stomach. So that part started peeling a little bit. It was a very painful experience. But anyway, I decided that this is something that a doctor needs to look at so that I will know whether it's something that simple first aid can handle or maybe something that could get infected and then become a much bigger problem. So I decided that I was going to see a doctor. I called the first ambulance and they told me that their cars, their ambulance cars or buses were busy and I had to wait. And I asked how long would it take? And they said they didn't know that the buses had gone out to get people and until they come back, they are basically unavailable. And that was the first shock that I had. I'm thinking, if this is an emergency service, an ambulance is part of the emergency service, why am I in an emergency and I cannot get an ambulance? It didn't make any sense to me. So I decided to call a private emergency vehicle to come and get me. And they told me that essentially from where I was staying to the hospital, which was just about, 10 to 20 minutes drive, will cost $200 Bayesian dollars. $100 to get me to the hospital. Just to get, you're not administering anything. You're not doing any first aid. I want to go and be treated in the hospital, in the emergency wing of the hospital, not to be treated in the bus. So you're just transportation, but it's $200. So I decided that I wasn't dying anymore. There's a kind of emergency situation that you're in, and then you realize, wait, come on. I'm not really dying. I'm just in pain. This is fine. I can handle pain. Just take me. A taxi will be fine. I don't need an ambulance after all. And so I called a taxi, and the taxi was still quite on the high side, but I paid, right? Because this was in the night, and it was around, 9. It was like 9 p.m., yeah. And I was like, the only other option is to walk to the hospital, which was impossible. Back then, I didn't have a car. I wasn't driving. So walk there, impossible. Take a bus there, but the buses weren't running. I was living in a part of Barbados where at around 8:30 to 9, you don't see a lot of buses. So my only option was a taxi, basically. So I paid this guy about $70 and we went to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And we went to the emergency side of the hospital, right? I think there is an entrance, and then if you go around, there's an emergency section. And when you enter there, you go straight to emergency. So we went to that emergency side, and there was a line. For the first time in my entire life, I saw a queue outside emergency. So, first of all, everybody there is apparently supposed to be in an emergency, in a medical emergency. But for some reason, they were in a very stagnant line. When I say stagnant, I mean people were just standing there. It wasn't like the line was moving. No, they were just standing. Some people were in wheelchairs, and those people were sitting, but the rest of us were just standing. And after like 20 to 30 minutes, the line moved. I was like, oh, maybe there was just like something was jammed in front and they had to sort some things out and now we're moving. But we just took a step or two forward and the line stopped again. So it was like after 20 to 30 minutes, one person entered. Literally one person. Because if you're just taking 2 steps forward, it means not a lot of people got in, right? Otherwise, the line should have moved significantly. So I was waiting there. I was like, nah, this doesn't make any sense. Let me go in front and see what's going on. So I was there with a friend. I told the person to stay in the line so that I don't lose my spot. And then I'll go in front and see what's going on. I went to the front. And I realized that after the line to enter into the first door, there is a second line from that first door to where you actually enter a door that apparently leads to the doctor. So I asked everybody, I said, like, does this line go to meet the emergency doctor, like the person that we are actually going to see? And the person says, no, that when you reach the end of this line, then there'll be like a waiting room and you can sit there and then you wait for when you're called. I said, so we're standing in a line to enter into a door that we will stand in a line, to then enter into a room that we will sit down, and then we will finally get called. So I asked someone, I said, from the time that you came here, like one of the people who was in close to the front of the line, I said, so from the time that you came here till now, like how long did it take you to get to basically where I was standing to where you are now? He said he doesn't know, but that he had been there since morning. And that is when I realized the ridiculousness of the situation. There was a guy who was still in line that was standing since morning, afternoon, 9 p.m. and he was still there. That means the line was at standstill gridlock and it wasn't moving. Now, I don't know whether that is because of like something was severely wrong that particular day, or that is how it normally is. Please, if there's somebody who normally goes to the accident and emergency of Queen Elizabeth Hospital, please let me know in the comment section whether that day was a freak accident, because that was just ridiculous. So I said, okay, I am leaving here, I'm going to a private clinic. So I checked around on the internet. I found that there was a private clinic about 10 minutes walk from the hospital, and I just walked there, went inside. The guy was about to close because they normally close whether it's 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. I don't know, but he was about to close, and I told him this is emergency, and he said I should wait. I waited, and then somebody processed me. About 15 minutes later, he was seeing me, and then he did the whole first aid thing and everything like that, patched me up and told me that I needed to come the next day for something else. And I said, okay, that makes sense. Then I went home and I started pondering this thing. I said, imagine I had a stab wound. Like, let's imagine that what is happening here is not just hot water burn. Imagine I was stabbed and I was bleeding. Was the hospital's idea of emergency to have me bleed out? That doesn't make sense. And so I started researching this stuff, and I found out one very interesting situation that the Barbados hospital is in. You see, Barbados has one of the best hospitals in the Caribbean, objectively speaking. Like when you look at all the equipment that they have, heads of state, even people in top government positions around other Caribbean islands actually fly to Barbados to get treated, right? I remember one incident specifically where the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines was flown to the hospital in Barbados to be treated. And there are other people, like everyday people from St. Lucia, from St. Vincent, from Grenada, from different parts of the Caribbean that come to Barbados to get this top quality treatment. So anytime there is a season, maybe a flu season, or when there is an increase in crime rate in other countries, or even in Barbados, or violent crime goes up, and there is a lot of emergency in Barbados and in neighboring islands, the hospital gets bombarded and overwhelmed with the number of patients that come in, because the hospital has a finite number of resources and, human beings working there. And they're not magicians. They still have to do things in an orderly way and to a particular standard. So they can't rush things, and because of that, even because there are also people who are taking advantage of the system, because Barbados also gives free health care but to a large extent to all its citizens and its residents, many of its residents, right? As I think it's specifically permanent residents, right? Not temporary residents or people on visa. Yeah, permanent residents in Barbados and all citizens in Barbados get free healthcare to an extent to what is covered by the Barbados free healthcare, right? So some people take advantage of that. And apparently there are people who basically just have a headache and they go to the hospital because it is free. They just want small things like that to be part of their free healthcare, right? So because of that, local pharmacies, you usually not see people go to pharmacies because then they will have to buy their own medication and do their own stuff. They are not going to go to private clinics because they have to do their own tests and they have to pay for it sometimes. And many of them either can't afford to do that or they can afford it and they just want to take advantage of the system. And because of all of these things, whether it is people who genuinely need help or people who are coming into Barbados to get better treatment, maybe because their countries are overwhelmed as well, or maybe they don't have as good of a medical institution as Barbados, or whatever the reason is, Barbados usually has more people than the Queen Elizabeth Hospital is equipped to deal with, right? The capacity it can contain. So the only option would be to basically have another hospital that is as big and as good, or have multiple other hospitals that is as big and as good, and that is going to cost millions of dollars, right? So this is a very, very, very important calculation and decision that the government is going to make, because on one hand, you have to wonder, is there a way to solve this problem without spending a lot of money that could be used in other sectors? And on the other hand, you also have to think, what if the other sectors are not benefiting as much because this one sector is underperforming, right? It's not performing to a given standard. And all these considerations are things that government officials have to make, people in the health sector or whatever. But it's just something I find very interesting, and it's something that I've only seen in Barbados, right? If you have any experience with the health sector, or you have more insight into why all of this is the way it is, please let us know in the comment section. Everybody comes here to learn more, and I'm one of the people who learns the most from conversations like this. Okay, that's that about healthcare and snakes, and stay away from centipedes. They're very painful. But I found something else. I found that the Barbados Police Service has an official Facebook page. You all need to see this. I think it's on your screen right now. If you're washing the dishes, if you're cooking, leave it and look at your screen right now, because what I'm about to show you will blow your mind. The Barbados Police Service has an official Facebook page. I believe that this is the official Facebook page because, it says government, organization, commissioner of police, police headquarters, etc., etc. All this information is here on the left-hand side, and it's showing like real stuff from the police. Technically, anybody could open a Facebook page and say it's the official Facebook page, but I'm going to assume that this is actually the official Barbados Police Facebook page, and not someone just, trying to... What's the word for that? I don't know. Yeah, whatever. But if you go to the real section, impersonate is the word I was looking for. Somebody is not trying to impersonate them and this is their real account. But if you go to the real section of this page, you're going to see a lot of videos with people's faces. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. What is going on here? And I clicked around. Like, obviously, you're going to see like some people are wanted. Some people who are wanted are now in custody. And some people, like, you're going to see a bunch of things on the page. But when I clicked around some more, I found out that this page does videos which are like cartoon movies, sort of, where ladies and gentlemen, they have what is called Wanted Mondays. Wanted Mondays is a show that this account does every Monday. And if you look at, I found some that we are very interested. If you look at episode 59, it is titled The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and the Crier. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and the Crier. That's what they named this stuff. And throughout the video, they talk about like what happened, and they show all these like cartoons. If you're looking at this, you see some cowboys with hats, and they make it look like a movie, like a cartoon kind of movie. And they talk about real human beings, like real people who are wanted, or people who are already charged, or people who are in custody. And they come up with all these stories. They're entertaining stories, but it's sort of like to pass the message of what happened or the situation. Maybe sometimes they're talking about how the wanted person was captured and whatever. But what is very interesting is how they do it. Like if you look at it in this case, they took a boy, I've cut out his name because they wrote the guy's full name with his face and everything. And they say that when they caught him, he was crying or something. And if you look at this quote here, it shows mommy, like he's crying for his mother. And they do this is a teenager, but I've seen another one where it was a full-grown man, like a 46-year-old man or something like that. And he's just crying. And they put him behind a jail cell. And well, I think if I find the video, I'm going to show it. I'm going to put it up here if I find it. Okay, I just found it. Here is the picture of this guy crying. And they put his real name. And they put it behind bars, and he's behind bars. And guys, I'm like, these are real people in Barbados. And why this thing was so funny and at the same time so shocking is because in many other countries, they just talk about somebody who is wanted and they talk about him when he's caught, right? Maybe YouTubers or people online can do all these kind of funny videos, but you rarely see, or you never see, the official police department doing these kinds of videos, right? You rarely see it, or you never see it. It's only in Barbados I've ever seen this. And I was wondering, why would they do this? I'm thinking maybe they're trying to deter further crime, because this is very embarrassing, right? Maybe if criminals in the future want to commit crime, they're like, oh boy, if I commit crime, the police is going to put my face and do all of this stuff with my story and my image and everything. And I was thinking about it. I said, is that even an effective method? And I mean, in a big country like maybe the United States that has over 300 million people, or Nigeria that has over 200 and probably 280 million people, something like that. Trinidad has over 1 million people. Like India has 1-point-something billion people. In all these countries that have so many people, like their populations are so huge, if you post somebody's picture like this, it wouldn't really mean much, because like there's so many people, it's such a drop in the ocean. But in a small island, like the islands in the Caribbean, and especially Barbados, that just has about 280 or so thousand people, almost everybody in a small community knows everybody else, right? If you go to Bridgetown, for example, even as a foreigner, if you stay here for just about a month or two, you're going to recognize a whole lot of people, because you're going to see the same faces every time you go to Bridgetown. You're going to see the same faces when you get to Warrens. You're going to see the same faces. Like, people have regular routines, and because it's a small island with relatively small compared to much bigger countries, it's more like it's a small tight-knit community where everybody knows everybody else, right? Of course, not literally, but you get the point I mean, right? So showing somebody like this is actually significant, because a lot of people see it and it goes a long way. So it probably is actually very effective in reducing crime. I was now wondering whether this is something that was actually researched, and if there is any paper to back it up. And I read a couple of stuff, and it's not conclusive. The research is not conclusive, but one paper that I saw that caught my attention was this one that was published in the Journal of Criminal Justice. It's called Anticipated Shaming and Criminal Offending. Now, obviously, I'm not going to read the entire thing here, but you can find it. The link is there. You can see the link. You can Google it and you'll see this article. And in the abstract, one interesting conclusion that it had is, if you read the very last sentence, it says, "We therefore suggest that crime control efforts might benefit from incorporating a greater role for Braithwaite's conception of reintegrative shaming." So generally, from the stuff that I was reading, there seems to be a general approach, a general understanding that if people feel ashamed to commit a crime, they are less likely to commit that crime, which makes sense. Like it's common sense, but to see it being applied in criminal justice, and especially in this way that I'm seeing it on the Barbados Police Service Facebook page, is something I have never seen. Like I've seen situations where they try to get the peers, especially in school, where they try to make crime not to be cool, and you see a bunch of people coming in and giving talks to try to dissuade young people from committing crime. But what if a society that actively makes it very embarrassing to commit a crime is actually what the world needs right now, so that people there's no street cred in committing crime. There's no advantage. People cannot have this street hierarchy based on, because there are societies where if you've committed a crime and you've gone to jail and you come out, you actually have a higher reputation among other criminals and among other gang leaders. But what if we're able to re-engineer that system in such a way that going to jail is actually the most embarrassing thing that can happen to you on the streets? And then people don't want to go to jail, and people don't want to commit the crimes that send them to jail. That could be interesting, and that is something that I'm seeing Barbados expect. I mean, look at this other episode 61. It's titled "Once Upon a Time in Barbados," and you guys should watch this. Like, if you have the time, go and watch this. It's quite funny. And look at this. In this scene, you have them taking a guy to, I think you hear they were taking him to prison, and he's crying from the back seat with cartoon eyes. Who makes this? If you know the person that makes this edit, please let us know in the comment section. Maybe the guy is interested in doing some of my own video editing. It's very fun and hilarious. All right, so let's go away from that now. I want to tell you guys 2 ghost stories that why these things scare me. Because before we talk about ghost stories, you see, I am from Africa. I'm an African, I'm a Nigerian man. When we tell ghost stories or spirit stories or whatever, we're not doing science fiction. We're not doing imagination. Oh, make believe. No. 99% of all African ghost stories are either true life or based on true life. When you hear stories about spirits and demons or whatever, it's usually because a set of very scary things happened, real people died, people experienced calamities, and then they told the stories, right? But many people in the West, especially if you're talking to people from the United States or the UK or France or places like that, all of these things just sound like fiction. So they don't really pay attention to it. But people who are of African origin, or maybe people in the Caribbean who have African ancestry, people in South America, and I know Southeast Asia as well, many of these communities experience these things firsthand or know someone who experienced it firsthand. And so the stories are based on real life events. So when I hear stories of all these spooky stories from the West, I'm just like, somebody with a creative imagination probably wrote this down. I mean, there's a 50-50 chance it could be based on true events. Sometimes you do that. Like when you see all these exorcism movies, many of them are based on real life exorcisms that took place. But usually, like Spider-Man is not real, Superman is not real. Many of them are not even based on real events at all. They're just imaginations. In the Caribbean, however, because the people are from African descent, and because I know that we Africans and people in South America and people in Southeast Asia tell stories about real things to protect their family and friends and their local community, I take these stories very seriously. So when I hear a story of a spooky event that happened in Barbados, I know that that story is usually going to be based. There's a 99% chance that story is based on a real life story. It's even worse when it has real existing locations, like the stories I'm about to tell you now. The first one is in St. Lucie. St. Lucie is in a real place in Barbados, right? And you can walk there. And when they tell you near Cove Bay, you know where Cove Bay is. You can visit there. When they tell you locals there are still skeptical about a particular thing, and you go there, you ask the locals, and they tell you, yes, that is the truth, then you take these stories very seriously. I remember when I did a spooky video, and someone said I can go to another location, I can visit one of these locations and there's another story. I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna visit no location. See, let me do the Black American thing. I ain't gonna visit no location where they tell me a man died and now he terrorizing the whole place. I ain't gonna do that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a ghost story, you can send it to me. I will tell it on the channel. You can type it in the comment section. I will tell it on the channel. But you see my 2 feet created by God Almighty, they will not visit such places. And if by mistake I wake up and I'm in dope, maybe somebody put me to sleep and took me there, I will run as fast as I can to get out of those places, because I go to church, right? And one of the reasons we pray to God is that God can protect us from things that we cannot see, right? We pray to God for so many reasons. We love God. We want to worship God. We want to go to heaven. We want God to provide our needs, etc., etc. But one of the reasons we pray to God is so that He will protect us from things that we cannot see. Now, how will I be praying to God to protect me from things that I cannot see, and then actively be going to meet the things that I cannot see? That makes no sense. Anytime I watch YouTube videos and they say, oh, we're going to go to this haunted house and we're going to be... Why? Why? If you want to see a dark room, turn off the light in your house and film it. That is a dark room. If you want to see a dark bush path, go outside your house in the night, go to a bush path and film it. That is a dark bush path. Why must it be a dark bush path leading to a dark room that someone died in the 1800s and her soul has been attacking people and killing them? Why must you go to such a place? To achieve what? Exactly. Why? I don't get why people do this. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about the first story. I'm just going to read it to you and then I'll talk about it. So here's how it goes. I'm reading it the way I got it, right? If you know about this story and you want to tell me which parts I didn't get right, or maybe there's a slight modification, feel free to comment. But this is how I have it. This is how I found it, and I'm reading it to you exactly. So here it goes. There was a fisherman from St. Lucie named Ezekiel Clark. People used to call him Zeke. A quiet man who spent most of his life underwater. He lived in a little chattel house not far from Cove Bay. Every evening before sunset, he would walk the same narrow track down to the shore carrying his fishing bag. One night, a few neighbors were sitting outside shelling peas when they saw Zeke walking up the road. Nothing strange, he always came home around that time. But a few seconds later, they saw Zeke again, walking behind the first Zeke. Same clothes, same limp, same fishing bag knocking against his knee. The two figures walked exactly in step, but the second Zeke looked hazy, as if the dusk light passed through him. One neighbor called out, "Evening, Zeke." Only the first Zeke turned his head. The second one didn't react at all, just kept walking like a shadow that didn't know it was supposed to mimic. The real Zeke didn't see the copy. Another neighbor, old Miss Vida, sucked her teeth and said, "Lord have mercy. That is his duppy walking with he. That ain't no good sign." But the time Zeke reached his house, the second figure faded into the dusk. Zeke was confused because everyone kept staring at him strangely the next morning. When his friend Alvin finally told him what they had seen, Zeke went quiet. He said he'd been dreaming of drowning for 3 nights straight. A week later, during a rough spell of weather, Zeke went out fishing as usual. The sea turned suddenly and his small boat capsized near the cliffs. They found him washed ashore at sunrise. The old people still say, Zeke dead the same way he duppy walk before he. To this day, some St. Lucie residents swear that on certain evenings, if you walk the road near Cove Bay at dusk, you might see 2 shadows where only one man walks. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the stuff of nightmares. So, just to recap, this guy Zeke was walking, and another Zeke, blurry, faded version of Zeke, was walking behind him, which he couldn't see, but all the other villagers could see. Zeke was dreaming about dying. This mysterious event happened. Zeke eventually died. I have a couple of questions. Barbados is quite a religious country, right? In fact, I don't know the exact percentage, but a large percent of Barbadians are Christians, and even the ones that are not Christians right now, they either had a Christian upbringing or they grew up Christian or whatever, they lived in a Christian community, whatever, right? This is how Barbados is. If the majority of people are Christians, is there a reason why when phenomena like this happen, most people don't think to pray about it? That part doesn't make any sense to me. You'll see people talking about strange phenomena happening, and they're just like, it's a serious thing, I wonder what we could do. Man, if it's spiritual, you approach it spiritually. What else were you supposed to do? Just talk about it and tell your friends? No! Why don't people pray about these things more often? These are things that, they're spiritual in nature. You're not going to start having scientific methodology for dealing with 2 appearances of the same individual. That everybody, it's not a hallucination by one person. Because sometimes when people get drunk, they say, I see you in 2. How many fingers you got there? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an entire village An entire village seeing the same person twice. The second of the two is faded. Now, one of the people identified the second one. If you were listening to the story, old Miss Vida said, Lord have mercy, daisy dopi. If you said Lord have mercy and you said daisy dopi, we have automatically taken this from the physical realm into the spiritual realm where it rightfully should be. Now tell me, ladies and gentlemen, why they didn't follow up with prayers and fasting and deliverance sessions and exorcisms and all of that. Why? Now, here's another thing. They say, to this day, some St. Lucie residents say, you can be walking and you see one person and two shadows. Everybody else has one shadow. One individual has two shadows. There has been an incident where one individual has already died from something mysterious like that happening. Is there a reason why people are not coming together to pray about it, to do exorcisms, to do deliverance ministries? Why is this just a story of, oops, it happened? I mean, there are people who believe it. Don't get me wrong. See, if you don't believe any of these things, right? You could just say, okay, figment of people's imagination, is a phantom appearance, is a specter, is a whatever scientific name you want to give it. And then you just say it doesn't warrant my attention and you forget about it. Makes sense. Logical conclusion. I mean, if I don't believe something, I don't put my effort into it. It makes sense. What doesn't make sense, however, is if you believe it, you talk about it, you tell stories about it, you tell your children, you tell your grandchildren, you tell your friends, you tell your neighbors, all of you talk about it, but nobody does anything to stop it from continuing. That's the part I don't understand, right? I don't get it. And then multiple people that don't know about it, they hear about it, and sometimes they're giving tours. Like people are going to say, oh, come and see the house where it happened, or come and see the street where it happened. You believe it happened, you're giving tours about it, but you're not doing anything to stop something that claimed a man's life, something you believe claimed a man's life. That don't make any sense to me. And this is why I say this is something that can only happen in Barbados, because we've had stories like this in Nigeria, multiple stories like this in Nigeria, right? And anytime something like this in Nigeria happens, one of two things happen. If it's a part that is predominantly Christian, like Barbados is, everything I just talked about is going to happen. There's going to be a lot of prayer, there's going to be fasting, there's going to be deliverance session, blah, 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 all of those things. If it's a part that is predominantly traditional worshippers, people who do traditional religion, right? Where they pray to the gods and they offer animal sacrifices and do all of those stuff. The Christians who are living there will usually move. They will usually leave the place. Why? Because the place is no longer safe for them. If people are dying in spiritual events that have no scientific explanation, cannot be stopped with physical means, and that is just the case, it's not one person saw, it's a couple of people that saw, it means that place is no longer safe. People are going to move away from there. What you will not find, however, is a bunch of people making it a tourist attraction. You believe it is dangerous, that it is real, and you're telling people, come and see. Oh, let me walk here. Here's the street it happened. And the story goes that he hung his head from here, and you see all of those stuff. No, you should have some level of fear. You should have some level of fear, because a healthy amount of fear makes you make rational decisions that prevents you from dying. That's just how I see it. And I've experienced similar things in South America too. If there's this kind of situation, and in South America it's slightly different because even though there is a large Christian population, there is a large traditionalist population as well, people that still do animism, right? They talk to spirits and they do all these seances and whatever rituals or whatever. But in those cases, even the people who are doing the whole animistic religion and all of that, they try to appease the gods. Maybe the gods are angry about something, and that is why they are doing these unexplained things that are killing people. They try to do sacrifices to appease the gods. They try to do something, assuming it's not them that are causing it to happen, right? The Christians will try to pray, they'll try to do something. And everybody will realize that this is a dangerous situation that needs to be resolved. In Barbados, however, I found that the more ghost stories that I hear from people, and I should probably stop hearing ghost stories because the more of them I hear, the more scared I get. But you will hear the ghost story and then you will end with, oh, what happened after that? And then they say, nothing. People just doing their thing. Why is nothing happening after such a horrible story? Why is the solution nothing? The solution should be something. Not true. Guys, if I'm tripping, tell me. Let me know in the comment section whether I'm overreacting. But if you have a story that killed someone or that is terrorizing a group of people, there should be somebody working on a solution. That is just how I see it. But anyway, that is only in Barbados. To the best of my knowledge, that is only in Barbados, right? No investigation, no solution, just get on with your life and everything will be all right. Everything's gonna be all right. Maybe that's the mindset. Maybe it's just the chill mindset and they don't really see it as a threat. Maybe they believe it happened, but they don't believe it's going to keep happening. Maybe they just don't believe it and they're just talking as if they believe it because it makes the story more interesting. I mean, if you say a story as if you believe it, it makes it more interesting. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know, right? Here's another story. This one happened in Welchman Hall Gully. I think this is near Harrison Cave. Yeah, I think this is near Harrison Cave. Harrison Cave is a popular tourist attraction, by the way. And this is a few minutes away from there. So here's the story. Welchman Hall Gully is beautiful in the daytime, but at night it becomes a different place. Too still, too quiet, with the tall trees closing in like the ribs of a great beast. Back in the 1970s, a young transport board driver named Marlon took a dare from his friends to walk through the gully late at night. They told him the gully had a ghost, a horseman who ain't got no head but still does ride. Marlon didn't believe in duppies, so just after 11 p.m., he decided to prove them wrong. He parked his van near the entrance and headed in with his flashlight. The night air was thick. Even the tree fog seemed to quiet down as he walked. Halfway through the gully, he felt the ground tremble faintly. At first, he thought it was his imagination. But then, the trembling grew stronger, like something galloping. Yet, there was no sound, no hoofbeats, no clopping, just the vibration running up through the soil into his legs. The trees ahead parted slightly, and from the shadow stepped a horse, a huge black one, its coat dull like wet charcoal. But the strangest thing wasn't the horse, it was the rider. The man on top had no head, no neck stump, no wound, just nothing. His shoulders rose, and above them was emptiness. The horse walked forward, slowly, silently, no crunch of leaves, no sound of breath. Marlon was frozen. The rider lifted an arm and pointed further up the gully, as though warning him to turn back. Marlon bolted. He swears the horse moved beside him for a few seconds, his shadow racing next to his with impossible speed until he reached the road. The moment he crossed the gully's boundary, the horseman vanished. The next morning, Marlon found hoof marks in the mud along the exact path he had run, but none leading into or out of the gully. Even today, some locals won't walk Welchman Hall Gully after dark. They say the headless rider is a plantation-era spirit, a guard who died on duty and still patrols the land silently. Ladies and gentlemen, Marlon went from being a non-believer to the most believing believer in all of Barbados. Isn't there something that happens when you are face to face with death, and not even a physical experience, a spiritual, life-threatening experience? Nobody can convince you that what you saw wasn't real. In this particular situation, it's mostly based on, legend about the place, stories about the place, and Marlon's personal testimony, right? It wasn't like the first story that I read where a whole bunch of people saw the same thing and all of them are saying the same thing, all of that. There's only one eyewitness, right? And he could have made it up. He could have made it up just to make the thing more interesting or whatever. But, if there is a common story, this is the part I don't understand. If there is a common story about a particular shady looking place that gets even shadier as it gets darker, with a whole bunch of spirit stories about it, and the locals are telling you that there's a headless rider there, why on earth, even if you don't believe in spirits, right? Just from the safety point of view. Because if anything happens to you there, it just reinforces the narrative that there are spirits. So take, for example, there are no spirits. Let's assume that there are no spirits. Real talk, right? And there are only some bandits there. If you go through that place and bandits attack you and beat you and leave you almost half dead and take all your stuff or whatever, and you manage to make it out, there will most likely not be any investigation from the other villagers. Why? Because they already believe that there are spirits there. So anything you say, they will just say, oh, must see the spirits turn into human form and beat him up. That's all they're going to say, right? You could probably get police officers to do an investigation, but what if the police officers are also from that village and they also believe it, right? They are going to be biased in the way they... And do you get what I'm trying to say? The only person that is at risk is you. You take on all the risk from going into a bushy path at 11 p.m. simply because you don't believe in the peace. Even if you don't believe in the peace, why can't you just be safe? This is what I don't get. The more westernized a country gets, the less likely it is to have simple safety, safety precautions, right? And this is a good thing and a bad thing in a sense, right? Because when you grow up in a place that is very, very safe, which is usually going to be Western cultures, with a few exceptions with some countries in the Middle East, right? But if you grow up in a country that is very, very safe, one other exception will be China, because, well, I don't know, but it seems to be very, very safe. There's a very low crime rate in China. But if you grow up in one of these kind of countries, you have very low, IQ when it comes to safety precautions. I've seen people leave their doors unlocked, right? Leave their houses open at 1 a.m., right? coming from a country that safety is something that you take care of yourself. You cannot leave your doors wide open at 8 p.m. Are you begging to be robbed? Are you begging to be attacked? Right? If you come from a place like South America, many countries in South America, you can't be walking around just anyhow in the night at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. You have to take certain safety precautions, right? Many parts of the Middle East, many parts of Africa, many parts of Southeast Asia, you have to be careful. But I feel like the Barbados has a unique experience when it comes to the Caribbean, that it is quite developed. Crime rate is relatively low. There's a lot of Western influence in Barbados. And so this whole alertness mindset that you'll find among many people in the Caribbean, you're not going to find it a lot in Barbados, because Barbados is Barbados is significantly safe. You can walk outside your house at 2 a.m. and it's perfectly safe, right? I've done this quite a lot in Barbados. At 2 a.m., of course, many people listening to this will think I'm crazy. Yes, I have a degree of craziness in my head right now because I've lived in Barbados for quite a while. And that's what I'm trying to say, right? When I was in Nigeria, the places I lived in Nigeria specifically, you dare not take long walks, anything past 7 p.m. Are you high? Are you crazy? Do you want to get robbed? Do you want to get kidnapped? Do you want to get killed? That is unheard of. It's ridiculous. And if you guys have been listening to the news, the northeastern part of Nigeria, that's where I grew up. That is where the current Boko Haram stuff is going on right now, where they are doing the most atrocities, right? That is where it originated. As far back as, I think it was 2012, 2013, thereabout, right? So imagine walking out at 8 p.m. in a dark part, just in the forest, just because you don't believe in doppies. Believe in man's inhumanity to man. Believe in the amount of damage your fellow human being can inflict on you. You don't need to believe in ghosts to try certain safety precautions, right? Obviously, we want the country to be much safer. But are you willing to gamble your own health of mind and body? Right? Don't do that. Don't do that. And this is one of the reasons why I put this story as part of my Only in Barbados. Because yes, on the plus side, the country is very safe, which has made me to be less strict with my security measures. Yes. But on the other hand, you don't want to get to the point where, because the country is safe, you lose all your security measures, all your security intelligence. You don't want to get to the point where you're leaving your doors open and going to sleep, where you're walking through dark alleys, where you're doing... No, you never want to get to that point as a human being, because if anything changes, you're the first person at risk. If you ever travel to a country that isn't as safe, you're immediately at risk. This is why when a lot of Western foreigners travel to parts of South America or Southeast Asia or Africa, they get in trouble because they are used to having a chill life. And then they go to a place where you have to be a little bit more security conscious, and immediately they're in trouble. Right? So I don't know if this is a common thing or this is specific to this story. I don't know if this is a common thing where many Barbadians are just like, they don't care about security. If it is, please let me know. If it's not, then correct that notion in the comment section. But I found this story absolutely ridiculous. If something had happened to this guy, We like it will be so like I don't even know what people will say. Many people would probably call him stupid for taking such a huge risk. Right? You don't have to do this. You don't. Alright, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.